I'm waiting for on my computer to show up.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Faith and Family Live here at Scattered Women. I'm Laura HALT, and we are here for our second live event with Karisa Kaye from I Love You.
I Love Us.
Sorry. I was like, I love you, Karisa Kaye.
I love you.
Oh, my word. So if you couldn't tell, it's going to be a fun afternoon because we are both in Friday mode. And I've been fighting some sort of a bug since Wednesday, so I'm a little loopy on that end, and we're just going to have fun and run with this because that's the best we can do.
Amen.
Okay. Getting back to having my brain in the game. Okay. So here we are. We have Karisa is with us. We're doing part 2 of anxiety and depression and talking about today what we can do to really find our way out of that. Like we talked about last time, it's a cycle. You can be in the anxiety thing for a while and then you just crash and you can be in the depression piece for a while. And so this is finding a way out, giving you lots of good practical tips on how to really do that and what you can do to support yourself well in the process.
Yes.
So I'm going to flip over and let Karisa kind of dive in and give us the best of what she's got, and we'll run from there.
We'll see what we got. All right. Thank you, Laura. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Good to see you. Happy Friday. Hope it truly is a happy Friday. It's Friday afternoon, which is fun for most of us, unless you're in the service industry. That's a good thing. Hopefully that means breaks are coming up. So, so a few days ago, I was on for a little bit, and we talked about anxiety and depression, signs and symptoms, and disorders that go with that. Laura, you're gone. Okay, I see. Okay,
I'm here. I'm just, blowing my nose. All those fun things nobody needs to see.
Cool. All right, y'all. So I want to chat with you about some practical solutions and maybe a little bit about the theory behind the practicality of these today, because I'm sure, as is true with all audiences, we're going to have a vast spectrum of personality types and understandings and conceptualizations. So I know last time I got pretty wordy about explaining things from a scientific level, but that's a huge part of me that as a viewer, I would want to understand the base for something and where it comes from. I have a science background, and there are those type of people that want to know why. So if there's much of that today, that's where that comes from. So, all right, overview. Last time, just some main points. We talked about the brains of women. The brains of women, again, are, while resting, still 90% active. All right, whereas the brains of men, when they're at rest, are 30% active. So this post will probably be more gender preferential in terms of definitely addressing ladies today. So keeping in mind, a woman's brain is always on the go, and that can become very exhausting very quickly for those of us, either as moms, as career women, as both. We need a break. So how do we go about finding a break and taking good care of ourselves? I'm going to talk about the physical ways that we can cope with anxiety and depression first today. And I'm going to bring those together, anxiety and depression. So the first way, and my preface for this is, these might sound super simplistic and like things that you've always heard. They're just, marketers are finding a different way to market them. It's because they work. Like, that's all I can say. It's because it really is not supposed to be that hard. We make it a lot more complicated than it has to be, and it's really pretty basic. And you can go back to infants and young children as our models and examples of the simplicity of it. So let me put it this way. So hungry, angry, lonely, tired is an acronym I use for people struggling with addiction. Hungry, it's called HALT. You need to halt what you're doing. If I'm hungry, if I'm angry, if I'm lonely, or I'm tired. And then some people have added hyphen bored. If I'm halt and bored, I need to halt if I'm hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or bored, and I need to stop and take care of some real basic human needs. And so I'm going to start by addressing the physical part of that, and then we'll move into things like relational needs and cognitive needs and spiritual needs as we go on. Is that cool, Laura? Makes sense?
That's great. I love that. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired.
Yes. If you are one or more of those things, you need to stop what you're doing and tend to that need.
And how much of that is every day? Every day. And I can look at my 4-year-old and say,
correct.
Okay, you're tired. It's time for some quiet time.
That's exactly it. So if we're talking to an audience with lots of moms, think about your kids, and when they're having a tantrum or there's a meltdown, especially babies, because babies can't talk to us, right? Mm-hmm. So we're like, okay, are they wet? Do they need to be changed? Are they tired? Is it nap time? Have they been fed? Do they need to be held? Do they need to be comforted? I mean, those are all basic human needs that don't go away just because we become grown-ups. Okay, so that's kind of big picture today where we're working from. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is exercise. So I'm actually a trainer at a CrossFit gym here in town. So I have a fitness background. I'm really passionate about fitness. Thankfully, I had a mom who was really awesome about exercising and modeling that for me while growing up. But I also kind of contracted some of her energy, I think, and wiredness. So exercise for women.
Her energy?
What's that?
A little bit of her energy? Just a little bit?
She actually has more energy than I mean, she still runs circles around me. She's pretty phenomenal. So,
wow.
I mean, truly, part of that's her anxiety. But anyways, speaking of which, okay, so they have discovered, according to research, that the #1 way for women to cope with anxiety and depression physically is through exercise. It can be any exercise, anything that gets your heart rate up. For me, I think weight training along with cardio and anaerobic activity is great, just because of the physical benefits of that for a woman regarding bone density and testosterone and how testosterone impacts our mood. But anything, get out and move is what I tell people. Over 60% of America is obese, overweight or obese. That's a lot of people. That's over half. So there are a lot of people that are living a pretty sedentary lifestyle, or if it's not sedentary, it's busy, it's still unhealthy. And we'll get into diet and nutrition a little bit, but exercise, 20 minutes a day. That's all. It doesn't have to be, if you have babies, get out and play, push the stroller, get a baby jogger, go for a walk the dog, whatever you have to do, but you need to move. You need to move. It's because we're in our heads so much as women. Exercise is the #1 physical way to get out of our heads. We finally have clear space where we don't have to think about things all the time. And if we're depressed, it wakes us up. And those endorphins that we get a flood of endorphins if we're exercising for 20 minutes or more. Those are positive feel-gooders, if you will.
The endorphins going, and you can all of a sudden think.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So exercise is really big. Along with that, I think exercise for ladies can be important in terms of helping them to connect with other ladies or friends in general. Showing up to a group workout class, if you're an introvert or an extrovert, it just helps you not to feel alone. So if I'm wrestling with depression, maybe I show up to a Zumba class or a yoga or Pilates or something that's not as intense as Zumba. That doesn't require.
I'm laughing because I know that there is no way on God's green earth you're going to get me in an exercise class of any variety.
Okay.
It's like I've got videos and stuff that I can do here, stuff I can do with my girl, but going to a class, introvert, hardcore.
Okay. So what?
But yes, I know what you mean about a lot of people really just want to go and they want to get around other people.
Yes, they want to connect. That's really big for depression. You need to be around people because, again, with depression, we isolate. You need to be around other humans. And so maybe as an introvert, you find one person to go on a walk with or one person to do.
That's for me.
Abs deal with in your living room on a, an ab mat kind of a thing. So, but you got to move. You have to move. And unfortunately, it takes, if you've been out of it for a while, it's really uncomfortable getting back into it. And it takes a while to get back into it. I always say practically, if you have the means to hire a personal trainer for the first month or two, do that. I've done that in seasons where I've not been motivated, even as a trainer, because it's like, I just want to show up. I don't have to think about what I'm doing. Just tell me what to do. Just tell me how to move. And it's like my version of self-care. It's taking care of Karisa, investing back in myself. So if you can invest somebody to train you and come up with scheduling and programming, I think that's an awesome way of taking care of yourself and kind of making yourself a priority in your own mental health in that way. Does that make sense, Laura?
Yeah, and to have that accountability with it too. If you know you shelled out this money, we are so I know if I've paid money for something, I am so much more good about following through with it.
Yes,
and if just me, I'm totally good to just sit on the couch.
Yeah, that's real. I mean, if people say I'm paying this much money for exercise, I better show up and do the exercise versus I have a such and such gym membership. It's $15 a month. Whatever, what's $15, there's a difference in terms of, so yeah, great. Let's see. Okay, helps reduce stress. I mentioned that. All right, let's move on to sleep hygiene. So exercise, exercise, exercise. Now we need to talk about sleep and getting rest. And honestly, we could talk for an hour or two easily on sleep hygiene. I'm not a sleep expert. I've read some articles and material on sleep. I've had my own experiences with sleep. I've done my own qualitative research with clients in sleep. Women absolutely need more sleep than men. They do.
Yes.
Back to the brain chemistry and the brain operating. Our brains are that crisscross wiring, that spaghetti stuff that we have going on up there. Everything's connecting. We're naturally more emotional because of our estrogen and our female hormones. We just need more sleep because we need more help with recovery. We exert so much energy and we're doing so much throughout the day, multitasking. We absolutely need more rest than guys do. Along with that, men have, on average, a healthy male has 15 times the amount of testosterone that I have as a woman. Testosterone is your aggressive hormone. It makes you aggressive, assertive, competitive. It's your sex drive hormone. It adds to thickness of skin, acne, muscle intonation. It does a lot of things that make people intense. So, and people that have higher levels of testosterone don't need as much sleep. So oftentimes, that's why a lot of military guys can go out in the field and get 3 hours of sleep and get up and run a special ops the next day or does that make sense?
Well, yeah, and you think back to hunter-gatherer societies where the men had to be out and going and on alert for predators all the time.
That's right.
They couldn't function if they didn't have a lot of sleep.
Right.
Like, if they needed a lot of sleep, they wouldn't have been able to function. They wouldn't have survived.
Yes.
Whereas women are the ones that tended to be home, taking care of, more things that are around the home, and it wasn't as on edge all the time.
Yes. And if my brain is still 90% active while at rest and a man's brain is 30% active, he may or may not be expelling the same amount of energy during the day. So if my brain's constantly, again, if you have your foot on the accelerator, right? I mean, you're like, whoa, brakes. So sleep, women need at least 8 to 9 hours. 8 to 9 hours. Can you survive on less? Yes, but will it impact you eventually or immediately? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So again, back to that crying baby. Babies need sleep to rest. Women need sleep to rest, and we need good sleep. So oftentimes anxiety will give us nightmares. A lot of people have bad dreams when they're really anxious. There's a proverb about that too, but talking about somebody with many worries, I'd have to look it up. But because when I have more anxious seasons of life, my nightmares go through the roof. And there's a proverb that talks about that. So if you want to try and find that while we're chatting, you're more than welcome to.
Let me do some research here. I'm going to flip back to you and I'll do some recon.
Sounds good. Okay. I love it. ISTJ. Okay. So exercise, things that'll help us sleep better. You need to protect your sleep as a woman. So couples that I've worked with where the husband is willing to help his wife who's struggling with anxiety or depression overtly, I've asked them to kind of tag team her sleep hygiene routine. Usually in an ideal world, you have an hour to unwind. And that means shutting off screens because light inhibits melatonin production in our brains. And melatonin, as many of you have heard, helps us get drowsy and fall asleep. And so when we have lights constantly coming through our eyeballs, that tells the brain, okay, stop melatonin production. So a lot of time what people will do, unfortunately, is we'll look at our screens and then we'll turn them off and then we'll try and go to sleep. And it's like we toss and turn for the next hour and a half because we've kept our brain stimulated that whole time. So I tell people, turn off screens, be really intentional, really disciplined about turning the sound off if you can. Some of us are in jobs or in situations where life won't allow that. But if you have that luxury, turn off the sound, turn off your phone, turn it over, turn off TV, computers, because we want that melatonin production to naturally start taking place. Any of you who have Mac or Apple computers may have noticed that as the room gets darker, Apple has designed their computers to start to dim down their screens because it's supposed to mimic, okay, nighttime's coming in, we're unwinding, shutting down for the day, the work day's done. Let's see.
Okay, stop. Quick note on that one, Karisa.
Yes, ma'am.
With the max dimming and whatnot, my phone and my computer both have a way to block blue light.
Excellent.
So, and it's just a little thing you flip in the settings. Like it's super easy. And so if it hits, 7 or I think I have mine set for 10 o'clock at night. So I know that about an hour before I go to sleep that
that's great.
blocking all that blue light and killing any of that stimulation. Just
that
awesome.
It's real. I mean, the first thing I do when I need to wake up in the morning and I can't get out of bed is I turn my phone on and I start scrolling through all my social media and my email, because eventually I know that light's going to wake my brain up and then I can finally crawl out of bed. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
So the opposite side of things, I know a lot of women are like, all right, I can't get out. I need to look at my phone and kind of zing. Okay, so exercise will help us sleep better. That is a fact. You have to move during the day and expel a certain amount of cellular ATP, which I won't get into on a cellular level, but for you science folk, you know that that's the energy source for our cells. And so when we exercise, we build up ATP, and that's where we get our energy from. But exercise will also help us to burn that off. And so you need to move, get up and move. And so if you've ever had one of those days where, even if you haven't exercised in years, if you can think back to a time when you were a kid and you just ran hard all day and you were outside in fresh air and sunlight and water, and it was like physically you were so tired you just crashed, maybe even before you got to bed. Somebody had to carry you to bed because you were so tired. Exercise works to help people sleep better. Sex. I'm a sex therapist. Sex helps us to sleep better. Hopefully it's loving, kind, caring, nurturing sex. If it's not, come talk to me. Or find somebody who is good in that area of therapeutic work. But sex and orgasms help with people to sleep better. Sleeping remedies and routines. I talked about routines a little bit already. Some people need to read a book, and maybe, again, you're shutting down all your electronics, you read a book, you quiet the house down, you turn off music, or maybe you listen to really calming music, instrumental music, or nature sounds. A lot of women are into the essential oils right now, whatever brand or company. Lavender, chamomile, some of the fragrances or the aromas that have been designed to calm us down. There you go.
And so if anybody needs help on the oil spectrum, that is one of my areas. So
cool.
You need stuff on calming your brain down for sleep, I gotcha. I use them a lot.
That's a perfect segue. I didn't even know Laura did that. I promise that wasn't like a backup marketing thing. But for me, I have a very sensitive sense of smell. And so for me, when I'm tossing and turning, I'm like, man, I'm going to go put some lavender on. Or I'm going to spray some pillow spray. And it just kind of, all 5 of our senses are very real. And so the more you can appeal to all 5 of those senses to help your body relax and your brain relax, the better your routine and the better your chances of getting good night's rest is going to be. So I tell people, find some fragrances that smell really nice and are relaxing for you.
Yes.
Let's see. There are over-the-counter sleep medicines that do help. GABA, it's a neurotransmitter, and I buy mine at a local place here in town, Nutrition World, and it just helps calm the brain down big time. It's just, you don't need much of it at all. In fact, if you take too much, you end up feeling like you're suffocating because you've calmed your central nervous system down too much. But GABA is a great way for people to just, instead of using liquor or wine, because a lot of women, you hear the wine jokes all the time.
Mm-hmm. Especially in the mom world.
Yeah, sorry?
Especially in the mom world. Yeah.
Okay, well, it might taste good. It might help you relax. But a lot of people wake up at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. because it's like the alcohol. Alcohol actually works against sleeping soundly. It helps you to relax, but you end up, there's something about the way it metabolizes with the body that it actually works against good, restful sleep and REM cycles and how deep of sleep you can get. So it's nice for relaxation. Nights that I need good sleep, I'm not going to drink alcohol before bed, at least not wine. Whiskey, maybe. Okay, so some over-the-counter sleeping things. GABA, sleep spray with melatonin in it, that helps. I know some people use Ambien and some prescription pharmaceuticals. Usually they have a tendency to wear off. Like you use them for a few months and then pretty soon they don't have as much of an impact if you use them regularly. It just depends on everybody's metabolism. But if you can find,
if you're going to be using any sort of supplement, any over-the-counter stuff, make sure you're working with some sort of a health practitioner, whether that's a naturopath or a health coach or your doctor if they happen to be more naturally minded, or somebody to help guide you, because you're talking about the GABA having not good effects if you use it inappropriately. So just make sure you're getting the right dosage for you.
Absolutely. Yep. You want to do your research. Don't just run out and grab something and start using it, because everyone's body, if you have allergies or you just want to be
Absolutely.
Smart about that. And yes, good point, Laura. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I think I've said enough about sleep, but sleep, again, sleep's really important for women. It just is. You can cure. There was a study I mentioned on Tuesday about a whole batch of ladies that were chronically depressed, but also chronically sleep deprived. And after they arranged that these women could all get enough sleep for whatever the duration of the experiment was, all of them reported feeling better and feeling cured of their depression.
It's huge.
It's enormous. You're a mama and you get it. So
yeah,
I tell people if you can find a way to fight for your sleep, you're gonna feel better. I also I used to when I was at Laterno and home for the summer, I worked at a gym where I'm from in Alpena, and beneath it is a sleep clinic. And so I remember one of the gentlemen that worked for the sleep clinic talking to me about his cross country runner of a daughter, and he talked about how the sleep that we get before midnight helps our body to recover, and the sleep that we get in the wee hours of the morning, like from 3 to 6, is when our memory storage happens. So that's when our minds, like if you're studying for a test, you want to be strategic about when you're studying, because thank you, Jesus, for that reminder. So a couple more things about sleep. So good sleep is when our memories move from short-term memory to long-term memory. So it's really important in terms of memory. A lot of people, when they get really forgetful, oftentimes it's because their sleep debt is so enormous that their brain hasn't had a chance to transfer short-term memories into long-term memories. So they can become really like, oh, I don't remember that, and it's just because they haven't been sleeping enough. So memory storage is a really big part of sleep for men and women.
And here I've been blaming chemo brain for the whole last year, and it may just be sleep.
It could be both. I mean, chemo brain.
It could be both. I'm sure it's a lot of things, but I had not thought about the sleep piece. So
yeah, I mean, that's a real thing. I'm a little more sleep deprived because I'm trying to start 2 businesses and coaching at a gym. And so my memory, I have noticed for myself in the last couple of months, has been terrible. And that's really frustrating because usually I feel like an elephant as far as my memory. And it's been really bad. Like I don't remember telling people certain things so yes, you have to sleep to store your memories and to remember things. Also, people that are struggling to lose weight, we're going to get into nutrition here in a second, but oftentimes it's because they are not getting enough sleep as well. So our metabolism literally resets when we sleep at night, and it's usually the hours before midnight. I've noticed that as an athlete. So if I have a big game the next day, or a competition or a race or anything like that, or triathlon, I need to go to bed well before midnight if I can. Does that if my nerves will allow me to? I'm going to use more whiskey that evening. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. That's not going to help with athletic performance. But usually I'm going to go to bed around 8:30 or 9 before midnight. Wow. Okay. And so what happens is when people that are chronically going, like people that work 3rd shift, the night shift, it's like, man, I just all of a sudden I have this spare tire and I can't lose weight. So you go back to, well, when are you getting sleep? Oftentimes on vacation when people go away, I've noticed this for myself. Maybe I've been carrying around an extra 5 or 10 pounds, and I go on vacation. I get 3 good days of rest. It's like weight just falls off because my metabolism has had a chance to reset. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yes.
Yeah. So that's something that I want to mention, just because I know body image for women is incredibly important, and people battling weight loss. And it's like, well, I'm doing everything I can. Well, what kind of sleep are you getting? And when are you going to bed? And how long are you in bed? Okay, so leading into diet and nutrition. I am not a nutritionist, but I know a few things. I can tell you that sugar is a very real issue for mood. Okay,
yeah. Okay, wait. I got a story on this one. You ready?
Yeah.
So on Sundays, I play piano for our hymn service, and then I turn around and play for our worship service, and I help lead Sunday school in the middle of that. So Sunday mornings are like jam-packed, and I have to get up 2 hours earlier than I normally would.
Yeah.
So the sleep thing happens. But because of that, I'm like, I need coffee. And so for like a year, I would have coffee in the morning, and I would just use like a regular store-bought creamer.
Yeah.
And would go through my morning and be okay. And I would hit 4 o'clock, and I would be the nastiest, angriest, irritable person you've ever met in your life.
Yeah, because...
And my in-laws were visiting one Sunday, and I just finally stopped and went, this feels like a sugar crash.
Yeah.
And so I started doing bulletproof coffee that doesn't have a lot of sugar in it.
Okay.
And it's been night and day. Just
There you go.
night and day as far as how I feel the whole rest of the day. I still get the caffeine that I need to go through, but the sugar crash doesn't happen. And I'm not angry all the afternoon.
Yeah. It's so real. I tried doing Whole30 last summer because of some potential health issues that had come up through some blood work. And just, I didn't realize, one, how much I run to sugar for comfort. When I feel down, when I feel sad, I need to pick me up, even if it's for 15 minutes. If my energy's crashing in the afternoon, grab some chocolate. I mean, chocoholic for sure. Could eat ice cream every day. Yes, yes. And so doing the Whole30, that's a diet for those of you who don't know. You have to detox off of sugar as part of the diet. And so, I mean, I was so emotional, and it wasn't hormone related in terms of menstruation. It was just hormone related because my blood sugar levels were out of whack, because it's, for my body, it's like what I'm addicted to. And if any of you are hypoglycemic or have ever interacted with somebody who's hypoglycemic or diabetic, people that don't have low blood sugar are so darn cranky. They're cranky. Yes. My dad's he's type 2 diabetic and hypoglycemic, and he gets so snappy and mean when he doesn't have sugar. And it's just, that's what happens with blood sugar levels in the brain. That's a whole nother science class. But anyways, all that to say, if you have a high sugar diet, if you have a high fat diet, a high carb diet, which morphs into sugars and fats, you're probably not going to feel good. So even if I'm working out all the time, 90%, what we tell people in the fitness industry, 90% of what you're going to get out of your fitness is going to be what you're putting into your body. It's the nature of the beast. We're finite. We have skin. We have things that need to be fed, but we also have very real limits to ourselves as humans, the way that God's designed the body to work. We need fuel. We need the right fuel. And if I'm putting the wrong fuel in, you know, if my body's a body that's been designed to run on premium, and I'm putting, you know, unleaded whatever in it all the time, like eventually it's going to get real. It's not going to run like it could. And I'm learning that for myself right now. But a lot of you know, good food, unprocessed food, healthy food is expensive. It's expensive and it's stressful, and you have to do a lot more prep work. So it's, when I'm really busy, I'm just going to run through Chick-fil-A and snatch up my spicy chicken deluxe with a milkshake. Make it until, but I mean, that's real though. That's what we do. We get so busy that we don't have time to take care of real basic stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's huge between the time factor and the money factor.
Yes.
It's finding ways to do healthy food on a budget, on limited time is so hard. And there's a lot of resources out there to help.
Yes.
But we've got to take the time to find them. So anytime I find them, I'm shoving them out at my people. Like, absolutely. Here's, run this, go check this out. And we're going, why are you shoving another thing at me? Because this is important.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And thankfully here in town in Chattanooga, there are a number of companies that have started a meal prep business for really busy people or people who want to eat healthy but don't have time to do it. And for me, that has worked out well, because it's like, well, by the time I go to the grocery store, spend gas to go to the grocery store and do all the meal prep and buy the expensive food, I could have just paid for somebody else to have done it for me. So if you have those kind of resources, I mean, to me, that's better than grocery shopping. I hate grocery shopping. I hate cooking. That, some women love it, brings them to life. Cheers. But again, diet and nutrition is important, whether or not you're the busiest person you know or you have all the time in the world. You have to eat healthy, because that's going to impact our mood. Our mood. And again, looking to the mamas, looking back to your kids, how do they react when they get sugar versus when they don't have sugar? It's night and day. Along with that, I do want to mention there's a new vitamin B deficiency I've started doing some research around, and the acronym for it, or the alphabet around it, sounds almost inappropriate. But I learned about it actually from Maggie Slay, who attended, she's a pharmacist, she was at Laterno, and she has helped one of my friends who kept miscarrying when she got pregnant. And because I think Maggie had some of her own story, something to do with that, but there's apparently 40%, around 40% of the population has a genetic predisposition to not be able to absorb normal forms of vitamin B. Yes. And it leads to depression and a lack of energy, because vitamin B, B6, B12 are really important for energy. And so for me, in the past, I have found that I could be in the middle of the Bahamas with no stresses in the world, and I still feel sad, and I still lack energy. And I'm like, this is not right. Like, I exercise, I'm eating fish and vegetables for a week. Like, why do I still feel this way? And so I personally started on some methylated forms of vitamin B, and it's helped a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. And so for someone, it sounds goofy, but again, it's real basic. I don't think God's designed us to be overly complex in this way. That would be something I would have people to look into as far as their vitamin B. Are they getting the right form and version of vitamin B6 and 12? So, let's see. Okay, physically, get outside. Not everyone's a nature person, but get outside. Move, that's going to help you to exercise, but also a lot of the times nature can be very calming for people. So if you are a nature person, I have several clients who are like, man, I do best when I get to go out in nature. And that's one of the places, that's why I love Chattanooga, is there's so many places in nature to go out and get out of your head with the river here and the mountains and what have you. But being in nature for a lot of people can be very soothing and very calming and perspective giving. So if you have an opportunity to go out and get into nature, it sounds silly, but seriously, it can make a huge difference in the way that you see things. You don't have the kitchen in front of you and the kids running around you and the computers and the phone calls on the phone, like take a hike, literally, or just go sit on a rock by the river or the lake.
Water. Get out, get the vitamin D, get fresh air,
yes,
take the shoes off and get grounded. Right. Yeah, lots of good stuff from being outside.
Yep, and I think they're like this last spring I went to Rosemary Beach with Chris Elmore. I don't know if you had a chance to meet her from Latrino.
Yeah.
We got to go, and it's just so intriguing to me to watch the people that live in beach towns because they're so darn chill. Mm-hmm. Bodies of water are just serene. They're tranquilizing. They are sedating. It's just calm. Like there's something about water that has just been designed to calm people down. And so that's just a fun example I like to give is think about beach towns that people have been to. Think of going to, even if you're not a beach person, beach towns and the people that live there, they're chill. They're not high strung. They're not in your face. Like, yeah, what do you want? It's just
the difference between NCIS and NCIS LA.
Isn't there one in Miami? Is there one in Miami?
Oh, I don't know if there's one in Miami. I don't think so. There's one in New Orleans.
Okay. I thought there was one in Miami, but anyway, so water, get outside, be by water, do something that is sensory. Like for me, as bad as it is for my skin, in the summertime, I love to go out and lay by the pool that my apartment complex has just because it's like the sun, the water, the smells of sunscreen, like all the sensory things help me to stop thinking so much and I can just enjoy the present. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
This one is fun for me. Hugs. So Virginia Satir is a famous marriage and family therapist. And women, she discovered that women, in order to thrive, actually need 12 non-sexual hugs a day. So, and thrive, I'm talking like they're just doing great. They're vibrant, they're feeling healthy, they're feeling good about themselves. I don't think most of us get 12 hugs in a week. Maybe the happily married and the connected mamas do. I don't know, but 12 hugs are really important to the point. I mean, we are designed for connection. Humans are designed to connect. There's a whole phenomenon called skin hunger that, especially people that with physical touch as a love language, and you're not getting, yeah. I mean, your skin hungers for it, and so much happens in hugs for women. They feel safe, they feel contained, they feel nurtured. There's oxytocin that's released in the brain, which is also released during breastfeeding and laughing and lovemaking and dancing together. That is released when women are being hugged by somebody that they trust and they feel safe, and that literally shuts down the fear center in the brain. So for anxiety, that's huge. Like that's why the idea of there's a new thing out with weighted blankets with weights in them. It helps people.
On my wish list.
Yeah. I mean, they're expensive. I personally think they're worth it because they just offer so much comfort. It's like this anchoring. You're contained. I'm okay. Even though my head feels out of control, my body feels like I'm going to be okay.
Yes.
Those are great. So hugs are really great. If you can afford massages or you have a friend who's a massage therapist and is happy to help you, massage does wonders for people's mental health and physical health. Massage is great. There was something else I wanted to mention there. Darn it. Hugs.
Medication?
Yep, that's coming up.
Okay.
There's something else with the physical piece I wanted to bring up that I hadn't thought to write down. Okay, if I think of it, I'll come back to it. Pets. Pets are good. My pet is going crazy in the background, if you can see him. He has been, so I have a golden retriever, and sometimes people that are really depressed or feeling very lonely and or anxious, but definitely depressed, can benefit from having a companion. So I have a golden retriever, and for me, he reminds me that I need to play, which is going to help me segue into where I was going. Okay, so he is all about play every day. All he wants to do is play. That's his goal in life, is we need to play. And so I take him as, I know he was a gift from the Lord to me in a number of ways, but definitely because I could easily get caught up in task. I need to accomplish, I need to blah, 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 like go. When I come home every day, he needs at least a half an hour of my time where we just go outside and I throw the ball for him, or we play tug of war. And so for me, that's God saying, you need to chill out and you need to play. Okay? Which, you know, could be a gift that our kids bring us, but I think oftentimes women get so caught up with what has to be done and worrying about the next thing and the next thing that we forget that play is really important. And so that's what I want to go into, is play and laughter are really, really, really helpful for people. And I think this is going to sound like maybe a drastic example, but I think a lot of the time why people end up in affairs is because they end up finding somebody that they can play well with, and they've forgotten to play with their spouse. And so maybe they meet another parent on the playground that they frequent often while the other parent's always busy and gone, or they find somebody at the office that makes them laugh. So I took a continuing education class on laughter, health, and wellness, and the effects that laughter has on the brain of women. It was like 2 or 3 times more pleasurably intense for the brain of a woman to laugh than it was for the brain of a man, which I think is fascinating. And so we talked about how a lot of the time men will use laughter to court ladies. It's part of the courtship process. And the research that they had done, I don't know who they were polling, but in the research that they had done, they'd found that women chose who they chose first and foremost on whether or not he could make her laugh. So laughter is really important for the brains of women. And so when you talk about levels of physical attraction, who would you choose over this or this? I don't like that stuff. I think that's kind of a poisonous way to think about humans. But it's usually women will choose somebody who makes them laugh over model A, B, or C, because that's how important humor is for the female brain. I think it's because we naturally get so intense that to laugh feels like, oh, a flood of good things. So I have literally prescribed to people, okay, so there are over 42 different types of humor. So you need to know what type of humor you personally prefer. But I have told people that have had nothing but trauma after trauma after trauma as clients, I've said, okay, your homework is literally to go home and find your favorite comedian and turn on one skit for 30 minutes every day. Because your brain needs to have that in order to cope. Like, people that have been so high strung and anxious because life has come at them so hard, I will prescribe, I need you to go do something. It's so fun. And most times people are like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know what that means.
It's forgotten. We forgot how. We're too worried about everything.
We worry about everything, and then we become really controlling. I mean, like, even the garden control stuff, like, if we want to go theological on it, you know, like, we just naturally want to have control, and laughter means you need to let go of control, which is actually really life-giving for people.
Yeah.
They're just
fascinating.
Yeah. So laughter and play are really, really important. So I tell people, find a way to create play, whatever that might be. If that's a board game, you know, heads up with your phone, the Ellen DeGeneres thing, like, that's pretty funny. Just find a way to play that tickles your heartstrings and that can help you just chill out or wake back up. As far as, how are we doing on time, Laura? Are we good?
We got about 20 minutes.
Okay. The last part of the physical piece that I want to speak to is going to be medication. So unfortunately, we're on this side of heaven. There are just a lot of fallen things, and some of that relate to our anatomy and our physiology, and some of us are genetically, like I'd mentioned before, predisposition to being anxious, even if we don't know why. It's in our genes, and we might have more of this hormone or more of this neurotransmitter. So medication can be really helpful, and that's something you're going to want to talk to a psychiatrist about. If you have access to a psychiatrist, that is the first person that I would recommend you go see. They have gone to medical school, and then they have done their residency work and their practitioner work in psychiatric meds. Okay, now not all psychiatrists, as is true for every professional, has been created equal. There are some quacks out there, just like there are in other areas of mental health. There just are. That's the nature of the beast. There are also very good psychiatrists that can be very helpful. As far as getting over anxiety and depression, research has shown if somebody wants to do therapy along with medication, that's usually when they get the best results. It's versus just therapy or just medication. If you can pair the two together and you're trying to work through a mood disorder or a season of really intense grief or anxiety, medication along with therapy is going to be really helpful. So that gets into SSRIs, which is serotonin related. Serotonin, again, for women is connected to estrogen, and it's our mood elevator. So the things that make us feel good. So SSRIs, and some people who have come off of, let's say, substance abuse, oftentimes they have burned up all the good stuff that was in there. Or maybe they started because they didn't have enough to begin with. But a lot of the time, people that have come off of using drugs of some sort end up needing some kind of substitute as far as SSRIs because they've taught their body to stop producing serotonin and dopamine, the things that make us feel good, because they replaced it with artificial means. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. So consequences of unfortunate decisions, but that's real. So if that's something in somebody's background, please consider that. But again, you want to talk to a psychiatrist if you can about that. Let's see, hormones, hormone replacement therapy. Hormones are the little chemical messengers in our body that tell us how to feel. So estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, all sorts of good stuff in there that I'll spare you all, but those are all connected to how we feel about ourselves. Testosterone, again, people with higher levels of testosterone tend to feel less depressed. And so some women who have zero testosterone, if I have mentioned, maybe you need to go talk to somebody like an endocrine doc, and talk to them about getting on a low dose of it. Not so that you have chest hair and facial hair, because sometimes that happens. And again, a lot of time people in perimenopause or menopause or postmenopause without their estrogen and their progesterone, things can feel out of whack. As I mentioned before, because we are so stressed all the time, we have high levels of cortisol, which is our stress hormone that keeps us alive during war and marathons and basketball games. But also when we're really stressed all the time because of work and family and broken relationships or anything like that, that can get everything else really out of whack. Thyroid issues, hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism can lead to anxiety and depression, and so you're going to want to have that checked out. Again, an endocrine person or somebody who's really good with blood work. I know some internists, general practitioners who are like internal medicine have done some great work for me in the past as far as work. Birth control can help or hinder people, so that's something to consider. So yes, if you feel like you have done all of these other things to make your life better and you're still not feeling better, maybe trying a low dose of something would help. So that's just my spiel on medication. Not everyone wants to do medication, and I don't blame you at all. I would personally try every other route, but some people just need it. It is what it is. And so things like bipolar, you can exercise all you want, sleep all you want, but you need medication. So, okay, let's talk about the mind and the brain a little bit, cognitive stuff. So a lot of you maybe heard about meditation. It sounds very Eastern, and maybe the practice of it comes out of the East. But it's something that we in the West here could really use a lot of. And meditation, I want you to think of you're choosing to slow your brain down. I don't like the idea of emptying our brains because I personally don't think it's possible as women. I also don't think it's scriptural. I think we're supposed to fill our brains with good things, and we're supposed to meditate on scripture day and night. That's over and over again in the Word of God, like chewing on it like a cow chews on cud. So I'm really like sucking everything out of it that I can. So if it's not scripture, some positive thoughts that align with scripture. I think that's very important for us. Every day we need to renew our minds, like it talks about in Romans 12. That has been very important for me. I found some verses that Joyce Meyer, not everyone likes Joyce, but I'm using this as an example, that Joyce Meyer put out. She had like 50 or 60 of them, and she shared in a talk. I can't talk. There we go. And she made them just personal enough that they're still doctrinally sound, but it was like you could speak them over yourself. And so I personally have started doing that in the new year because I'm like, well, things are hard. they're not getting any better. So what do I have to lose? And according to the Word of God, speaking out words that's supposed to speak power into my life and allow the Holy Spirit to come in and do something. So I have found scriptures that I'm speaking out over myself either in the morning, some other time during the day, or just before I go to bed. And it's made a difference. It's made a difference.
Oh yeah, it's huge. I did a lot of that when I was pregnant, and I was doing hypno babies just to keep, because I was dealing with a lot of anxiety and stress even before I got pregnant. And so just being able to focus in and remind myself that my body is created to do this. I am going to be healthy. I'm going to be safe. My baby is going to be healthy.
Yes.
And just speaking all that out every single day and helping to keep my mind focused on the good things and away from the worry.
Yes. Amen. And to that, Laura, I'll add that, like I talked about the biological piece last time with the neuroplasticity and the circuits in our brain, things that fire together, wire together. And so a lot of the time, moving from negative thought patterns into positive thought patterns, it's a matter of you need to be disciplined because you didn't get there overnight, but you've been on a negative road for a long time. And to move over to this positive road, you're going to have to really focus in on how to do that. Yeah. And that's a discipline for a while. They've shown that it actually changes the neural pathways in the brain when people do that. So there are certain things that I do with my clients that I'll have them come in and start with in terms of trying to help them rewire and create new habits there. Because it's a hard row. And
it's helpful to have a guide. Like, to just say, okay, I'm going to start speaking good things into my life. I mean, you had the Joyce Meyer thing where you can focus on those things and really kind of focus on a script almost.
Absolutely.
And then the Hypno Babies, it was a track, like a CD that I just had playing in the bathroom every morning.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got it. Along with mindfulness, breathing, that relates back to our biology and our physiology, but breathing is actually breathing intentionally at a rate of 5 and 3. So if I'm going to breathe in for 5 seconds here. And then out for 3. That is the fastest way to stop a panic attack, is breathing at that pace. So a lot of the time when I work with anxious clients or clients through traumatic memories, part of that is I'm going to help them breathe. Because if they start to panic in session, I've had people just go into full-blown panic attacks when they do memory work. Your breathing is the fastest way to calm yourself down. It's kind of like when you think about, they've used breathing with a paper bag. Mm-hmm. When you're having a panic attack, you're having short, shallow breaths. Well, the bag only gives your lungs so much capacity to work with, so that in itself forces you to slow down, as well as when you have this thing coming at your face really fast, it's freaking your brain out. So like, I don't like this. Like you force yourself to slow down. So that's kind of the paper bag thing. But with women who are really anxious, I'll prescribe. I want you to take 5 minutes. Because again, solutions can be like, gosh, one more thing to add to my day. Like I want you to be able to incorporate this into your day, in the middle of your day. While you're waiting on somebody to come out of school, while you're waiting on the doctor, while you're waiting on your husband to get home, while you're, whatever it might be, 5 minutes. That's it. And I just want you to practice that rhythm of breathing. And I want you to notice how much it helps. You're going to turn off everything. It's just all, you're just focus on your body and calming down. So breathing along with mindfulness, I think, is enormous for people. Underrated. Let's see. Mindfulness again, for me, because I've been so busy and anxious, I've eaten an entire meal and not remembered what I've eaten, which is stupid. Like that's ridiculous. So there are a lot of foodies out there. There are a lot of people who really enjoy good food. And so I have a therapist colleague who she's making it her goal to do one thing at a time and do it well. And so, granted, I don't think she has kids or a husband, whatever, but it's a cool practice that I'm trying to mirror. And so when I'm eating, I'm like, shut everything down and just pay attention to how does my food taste. Enjoy the flavor of the food in your mouth. That's it. That's your only task right now. And that's like ridiculous, but it's legit. I mean, it works and it's legit, slowing down and being mindful of your sensory experiences and really appreciating the fact that you can taste what you can taste. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I'm picturing, the women with the bag of potato chips hiding in the pantry. Just let me focus on this one good thing in my life right now.
I love spicy nacho Doritos. Yes, exactly. You got it, girl. Okay, so that's mindfulness. A lot of people like yoga because of that, because it gives them a chance to chill out. That's a really, I mean, if you can do yoga and that's your thing, do yoga. But there's no reason you can't be practicing breathing exercises a couple of times during the day. Reading, a lot of people like to read. Slow down and read a book. If that's what you need to go to bed, and that calms your brain down, like figure out a great novel series to get tucked in with, or scripture, or whatever does it for you, but find something to read. Journaling actually mimics this new therapy phenomenon called EMDR that has to do with trauma processing. So when our brains get overstimulated, we have two hemispheres in our brain. When they get overstimulated, there's all this stuff going on up here. We naturally do rhythmic things to calm down, or we just kind of shut it down by ourselves. We dissociate because we're overwhelmed. And so rhythmic things, along with processing, they've turned into a therapy style, a very intentional therapy style. It's been very helpful for people with intense trauma, or not intense trauma, but it's called EMDR. And journaling actually mimics this, and it's a lot less expensive. And so it's the idea of I'm writing, I have a task, I'm writing left to right, and my eyes are tracing this. So part of EMDR is my eyes are tracing, and I'm engaging both hemispheres, and I'm calming down because I'm processing my emotions, I'm processing my memories, I'm processing, but I'm still doing something physical to track. So journaling is actually an underrated thing as well. Journaling is really legit for helping people calm down.
Well, all right. I've been doing something good for my brain since like 3rd grade. Huzzah!
Yeah, girl. That's awesome. Good. I need to get back into it. It's really helpful. It's really helpful.
So much. It's about the only way I can process life sometimes. Like I just have to bring it back and write it down and then get it out of my brain so I can move on.
Yeah, I think God's designed it to be pretty easy. Absolutely. Yes. Let's see. Breathing. Let's see. Mindfulness. Positive thoughts. I mentioned that. Okay, let's talk about relationships a little bit. All right, now this is where I think, as far as solutions, obviously, if you need to talk to a therapist, hire a therapist. But a lot of time for us, especially as women, well, no, just as humans, but definitely for us as women, relationships, unhealthy relationships, dissatisfying relationships, toxic relationships can be a huge source of anxiety and depression. So what I would suggest there is, first of all, if you don't know how to cope with any of those or do things differently than how you've been doing them, but you know something's broken and needs to get fixed, hire a therapist. There are plenty of people who are trained in how to help you do life better. So therapy, that would be a huge solution. Obviously, I'm biased because that's what I do. But it really does help people. It really does. I've done it myself, and now I love helping people work through their stuff, because it's like sometimes we can't see what's right in front of us when it's our own stuff.
Yes.
It's the nature of the beast. So my thing is, find a way to create or seek out healthy, life-giving relationships. So there are a lot. So all of us have patterns that we stay stuck in, can stay stuck in terms of being unhealthy. That gets into attachment styles, and the way that we've learned to relate to people according to past experiences, as well as core beliefs that we have about ourselves. And so if I have a negative core belief that I am destined to be rejected and I'm ultimately unlovable, I'm going to be a pretty defensive person, or I'm going to be a pretty closed off person. If I have, this core belief that I'm ugly and unlovable, so cognitive behavioral therapy, let me go big picture and work back. Cognitive behavioral therapy would say that all of us operate out of two main core beliefs. And the first is I'm unlovable or unworthy. And the other one is I'm destined to fail. I will always fail or not always be unlovable. And so I love this because I'm like, well, let's go back to Eden. What did God design in Eden? God designed us to steward and reign as little royal priesthood, or little royal ambassadors on his behalf, because we're created in his image. We're designed to rule over the earth. Okay, so I'm going to be successful at what I do, whatever that is. I'm going to have power, I'm going to have dominion, I'm going to have authority, I'm going to have stewardship, and I'm going to be good at it, I'm going to be competent at it, I'm going to be successful. And I'm going to be in loving, secure, healthy relationships. So I know I'm loved. I know I'm loved because of my relationship walking hand in hand with God in the garden, as well as my lover. So I'm secure and I'm successful. And so when we get all out of whack, which most of us will, it's because of one or both of those core beliefs ruminating in our spirit and in our head. which is where a therapist can be very helpful, and or a pastor. Yeah, yeah. So I love talking about that because it's like all of us struggle with that. All of us, we've all embraced lies about ourselves that we believe and that we're still really anxious or sad about, that we need help coming out of. So therapy is really helpful. Getting rid of toxic relationships. Let's see. What else did I write here? Oh, know thyself. This was really important. Know thyself. I'd mentioned personality last session or last conversation, and it's really important for us to understand personality. If I'm an introvert, then I need to go away from people for a while. I need to go away. That's the nature of the beast. If you think about plugging in your batteries and getting those recharged, as an introvert, Laura, you can attest to this.
Oh, yes.
You need to be You do. And so if you're always around people, eventually you're going to get really run down and maybe really angry and or depressed or anxious or all of the above because of that. Same thing with extroverts. If I'm an extrovert and I need to be with people to recharge my battery, then I'm going to feel really run down and sad and maybe anxious if I'm in isolation too long. So I need to force myself to get out and interact with other humans. Does that make sense, Laura? So
yeah.
The personality stuff, like when I bring that up, I get some feedback that's like, oh, that's just psycho mumbo jumbo. And I'm like, okay, whatever. But I promise you there's some legitimacy to the introvert extrovert thing. Like that has to do with where we get our energy. And then you need to do some research.
There's so much more with it.
What's that?
There's so much more with it. I mean, if anybody from Scattered Woman is watching, you know how much I talk about personalities.
Yes.
Everything comes back to personalities and the emotional needs that are connected so tightly with those. And yes, this is my shtick. I love it.
I love it. That's perfect. So yes, to that, some of us are thinkers, some of us are feelers. Like I talked about the other day. If I'm a strong feeler, then I might get run down more quickly than a thinker would. If I'm a strong thinker, I might be more anxious than a feeler would. Just depends on that combination of what you were talking about. So knowing yourself is really important. So, investing time and energy into understanding yourself better is never a bad thing.
Agreed.
And then spiritual, just in case we have any Christians that are watching. I can't speak to Buddhism or Hinduism or anything, or Baha'i or anything else, so I'm just going to speak to Christianity. Spiritually, all of us know, I think there's balance to be had. So Tim Keller, he's a modern day theologian that people really love out of New York at a Presbyterian church up there. I listened to a podcast of his one time, which I use as I'm assessing clients. He talked about we are not only spiritual, we are not only physical, we are not only cognitive or psychological. We are multifaceted, complex human beings in terms of how we've been created. And so there are a number of facets that we need to consider when we're assessing what's going on with someone. So if I have a thyroid issue, but I'm being told by a Christian that I just need to pray more, well, I can pray until I'm blue in the face, but you just go get some thyroid medicine, and vice versa. If everything else seems to be the way it's supposed to be, everything else seems to be running well, but something feels I'm still not, then it's like, well, let's check in with where we're at spiritually, because we have been created for more than just the here and now, and we have been created for a connection with the Lord. And a lot of the time people feel, this is why I love working with people in addictions, because it's like there's such raw desire there, and all of us as humans are so hungry to connect with something bigger than ourselves. We're really hungry for adventure. We're really hungry for something to worship or someone to worship. And so if it's not God or Jesus Christ, we'll find a rock star or a athlete, or we'll just find somebody to invest all of our hope and our energy and our, this gives me purpose in life. And so as Christians, my exhortation there is, do a spiritual checkup and talk to people that can hold you accountable, and talk to a spiritual advisor or mentor and say, I feel like something's off with me. I want to make sure that I'm right with the Lord and where I'm supposed to be, and I'm living life the way I'm supposed to, and I'm inviting the Holy Spirit into areas of my life where He wants to be and belong. And I think that makes an enormous difference for people. I didn't come to Christ until I was 14, and so I remember life without Jesus, and it was, I just wanted to be done by age 12, because it was like by then I had the big picture, and I was like, if this is it, like I'm just an old soul, and so the Holy Spirit was just like, used a young, cool pastor in the middle of a farm one evening to preach the gospel to me and to experience kindness for the first time in my life and peace and joy. Like, it's totally different. It's totally different on this side. So for Christians, you get that. And if you haven't had that for a while, maybe it's a good time to do a checkup on that. So yeah. Sure. Any questions, Laura? I think that's about all I got. Do you feel like there were enough options and solutions presented?
We've got plenty to think about, that's for sure. I mean, we've got all of the different ways that we talked about taking care of our bodies. Yep. We've got all the different ways that we have talked about just taking care of our minds and how we think, and then talking about our spiritual faith, our relationships, and all the different ways we can find help and support in that. There's lots and lots for people to dig in. So I think my challenge at this point would be to find one thing. Yeah. Out of all the stuff that we've talked about, what's one thing that you can walk away today and say, okay, I'm going to work on this. Yeah. You can always come back later. This video will be up on Scattered Woman as long as I have the power to leave it there. So you can always go back and rewatch it and say, okay, I've got this one down pretty well. Now I'm going to work on this one. And just focusing on one thing at a time as we work our way out of this stuff. I mean, I didn't realize I struggled with anxiety until I was diagnosed with cancer and they put me on an anti-anxiety medication because I was freaking out in the hospital. Sure. Like I didn't have a frame of reference for what that was. Yep. I do now. And so I'm having to relearn how to function so that I'm taking care of that. Yep. So I know I will be going back and rewatching this later just to learn how to do things better, but to find that one thing to walk away with and say, okay, I can do this. This is what I want to focus on for next month or whatever. Yeah. And Laura, I want to just end on this part. So I should mention this as a therapist and somebody who works with this kind of stuff. Don't expect to be totally cured or healed right away. Sometimes success is really, and this isn't BS, sometimes success is the fact that you don't want to jump off a bridge anymore. Sometimes success is the fact that you stopped having as many panic attacks as you've been having. It's just symptom reduction for a while. Is it ideal? No. But sometimes success takes a while. And it takes, like you say, just kind of chipping away at things. And okay, so I feel like I've got a good handle on this. So what's the next thing that I could try to implement into my story and in my journey, in my routine that's going to make life better than what it's been? So, yeah. Baby step. I mean, whether you're talking about your physical health or your mental health, it's all about baby steps. Totally. Yeah, I heard a marriage pastor talk, or a marriage teacher talk one time about, he said, how many degrees do you have to turn a steering wheel to change the entire direction of a car? It was like 1 degree. Like if I'm driving and I turn it, eventually the entire direction of the vehicle is going to go it's just a much wider arc. Yeah. 1 degree. So I keep that in mind. I'm like 1 degree because I'm a big picture person and an idealist. So if things aren't perfect and blah, 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 and it's not accomplished yesterday, then I wrestle with anxiety and depression because I'm like, dang it, so for me, it's like 1 degree, just chill out. Just one. That's all it takes. Yeah. So all those baby steps. Yeah. So are you good? We gotten out all the tips that we want to get out for the day? Yes. 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 Thank you. Awesome. Well, I want to make sure that people know how they can get in touch with you. So if anything is you're struggling with any of this, anxiety, depression, anything else that we've kind of touched on, and you're like, oh, I want to go back to that. I'm always happy to talk, but Karisa is the expert. So if you really need somebody to talk to, especially if you're in Chattanooga area and you can get in to see her live and in person, that would be a phenomenal resource for you. If you're, in other parts of the country and world, I'm sure she would not mind talking, by email or Skype or whatever. So I want to make sure I give everybody your contact information. Right. So I'm going to put it up on the screen and just let you tell them best ways to get a hold of you, what steps need to happen, all that stuff. Yeah, great. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. So you have my business
cell down there, 423-451-2150. And then my email, karisa.k7@gmail.com. Karisa with one R and one S and a K. Yeah, you can use either of those means to reach out to me. I'd be happy to chat with you. And if you are looking for resources in an area outside of Southeast Tennessee and North Georgia, let me know. I have colleagues all over the country, but I also have some resources that I can refer you to in terms of helping you do your research. So thank you all for tuning in. And I hope this has been helpful and hopeful, hope-giving for everybody that's watched.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, Karisa. It was so good to have you on for these last couple of lives.
Thanks.
We may need to do it again in the future. We'll just have to see. All right, everybody. Have a fabulous Friday, a great weekend, and we will talk to you next time. Bye, y'all.
Still live?
Yep, I'm waiting on it. Okay.